Joined on Chamber Amplified now by Kendra Lenz of Rowmark. We're here to talk about transportation and what it means to the workforce. Kendra, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Doug.
Absolutely. So this conversation stems from our Fresh Brew business in the beginning of February, where we talked about the importance and possibly some changes to transportation and a microtransit plan for Findlay and Hancock County. I spoke to you a little bit before we had that presentation, and you jumped at the opportunity. Unfortunately, our schedules didn't line for you to talk at Fresh Brewed, but I wanted to follow up because I think it's such an interesting conversation. One, the needs of the community, and two, how those relay into the needs of the business community. So that's what we'll dive into today. Let's first talk about how you came into the conversation. Obviously, Rowmark and you and Eric are big proponents of making sure there's some transit to get people to work.
Yes. Transportation may not be the first thing that businesses think about when they're discussing workforce challenges, but I'm here to say maybe it should be. At Rowmark, we recognize that, access to reliable transportation directly impacts hiring, retaining employees, and, employees with attendance. We did a survey in July of 25 in the Tall Timbers Industrial Park where we're located, and it was very clear that this is a broader economic issue. So, nearly every single company in the park either is currently using or has in the past utilized HATS transportation services.
And I have to imagine that's something that trickles down. It's not just the companies out at Tall Timbers. It's got to be up and down Main Street, Tiffin Avenue, Trenton Avenue. If you have workers who struggle to find transportation, you're going to have that higher absentee rate. You're going to have a much higher turnover rate.
Yeah, we even, I kind of toyed around with the idea of even hiring a part-time driver, just because, I figured that it would, we would have somebody on staff that would be able to go and pick people up and bring them to and from work. But once we evaluated, our insurance, the liability, scheduling, the vehicle costs, all of the logistics, it was just smarter and more effective option to utilize HATS. They've already got that infrastructure in place. They've already got insurance. They've got trained drivers. It didn't make sense.
Let's talk about HATS and your relationship with them. Obviously, like you said, they're able to bring people out to work for you. I know that you're a big supporter of the program. How are your employees using HATS right now to get to and from work?
So usually, right now we have about 2 employees that are using it on a very regular basis. They schedule their pickup time. Sometimes they are coming to work, half hour, 45 minutes before their actual shift schedule, just because, they're at the mercy of when they can be picked up. But they don't want to miss work. So it's not that they're not willing to utilize HATS. Using HATS, but they want to make sure that they are at work.
When you look at the proposed microtransit plan for Findlay and Hancock County, what are the things that stand out to you that are appealing from the business community side?
Well, again, like I said, it helps with retention. It opens up that job pool. If when we bring in, employees or candidates, we ask, do you have reliable transportation? And sometimes they do not. And so I think it opens up that labor pool a little bit more, so that way you have more people to choose from.
And let's talk about the downstream effects of that. So if people don't have that reliable transportation, obviously it's a problem for you for a business. You've got to make sure all the lines are running and everything. But that's a real limiting capacity for them to find good jobs. I mean, there are plenty of good jobs out in Tall Timbers and all across Findlay. But if you can't get to them, your access to making your life better is really hampered.
Yeah, it definitely is a holdback, especially where we're located. We're on the north end of Findlay. So we're, a lot of folks, live right downtown. And so it is a little bit of a commute. So they're relying on either coworkers or friends or family members to pick them up and take them to and from work. What we started to do is, we just let it out to be that they get a 60 or 90 day supplemented transportation. So we are actually picking up the cost for 60 to 90 days. So depending on, their situation, just so they can start saving up money to be a little bit more self-sufficient. And then, they may pick up some of that cost, or we may share that, just because we want them to have something invested in transportation as far as, getting themselves to and from work.
I think that's a really good point, and I love to hear that it's not you just saying, "Hey, we need this plan." You are actively investing in your employees being able to use the plan so that they can get moving in that positive direction. I think that's something that I know that all the tall timbers businesses tend to work together on these types of things. So I'm sure that's something that may have been shared out there, but that's a great template, I think, for other businesses in the community as well, if they can do it.
Yeah, so Chuck Bills from Ohio Logistics and I have had several conversations with James Baker, Crystal Whites, and Josh Anderson from the Community Commission. And, just trying to figure out, what we can do in the park, whether it's like different bus stops and where those bus stops might be located. And then they might have to walk a little bit to the businesses, but, it would be, more available, and it would make things run a little bit more efficiently, having those planned bus stops and times.
Is this in your time in HR and looking at this, is this a bigger issue now than it was maybe, well, I don't want to say 5 or 6 years ago, because 5 or 6 years ago, there were some fairly significant issues not related to transportation at all. But let's say pre-COVID, is this a bigger issue now?
I definitely think so, and I think it's only getting I would say worse. That people do not have transportation, whether it's because they can't afford a vehicle or they don't have a driver's license, but they want to work. And so we have a lot of our businesses in the park are hiring, and we have plenty of jobs. We just need them to get a little bit north of Findlay to take on some of these positions.
Yeah, that's a good point about affording a car, because there will be people say, well, why can't they just get a car? Well, we talked about it at Fresh Brewed in February, what the average price of a car is now, even a used car. I don't remember what I paid for my first used car, my Hyundai Scoop, 91 Hyundai Scoop. Shout out, missed the blue bullet. But I know it was not what used cars are going for now. There's no way as a high school student I could have afforded that. And there's that price has really gone out of control, and that's a big contributing factor to all of this.
Yeah, and in talking with James, I found out that 50% of the HATS rides are for people going to and from work. So, I mean, that's their largest group of people that are utilizing their services. And in 2025, they provided over 87,000 rides just in 2025. And they did also share the other statistic that 4,200 people that they had to turn away because of their capacity limitations. So they don't have enough vehicles or enough drivers to get people to and from work.
I think the other side of ripple effect of this is not only do people not have that reliable way to get to work, they don't have a reliable way to get to doctor's appointments either.
Yep.
And that causes a ripple effect. If you have employees who aren't healthy or they can't find reliable transportation, they may have to take time off of work just to get to that doctor's appointment, where if they had better reliable transportation, they would, one, be able to get there more often, and two, maybe be able to schedule around the workday. So that would be, I think, a huge benefit for you as well.
Yeah, some of the companies, a few of the companies in the park, we're kind of pulling our money together, and we are going to support HATS. So that way we have a dedicated resource or dedicated van that will be coming into our area to bring people to and from work. Last year, I think it was about $264,000 in local support, leveraged nearly $800,000 in federal funding. So every local dollar is essentially multiplied.
So if obviously you have worked pretty close with HATS, if people want to learn more about the proposed microtransit system, or just about how HATS work, or if they just want to have a conversation about what the lack or access to transportation means to the workforce, where are some good places to start?
So I would just call the HATS number. Crystal Whites is a great resource. James Baker, Josh Anderson, all three of them. They're very responsive. We have employees that reach out. They can text and schedule their rides, but they are very easy to get a hold of and super responsive. And they want to provide opportunities for people in the community to come into Tall Timbers and other locations, so that way they have, a place to work.
And Kendra, I know you were super prepared for this interview and you had your notes down and everything. So I want to give you the opportunity. If I didn't get to anything on your notes, let's get those out, because I want to make sure that we get all the information out that you want to have out there for sure.
Yeah, sure. So I would just say, at the end of the day, this is about keeping Hancock County moving forward. When transportation is reliable, when employees can get to work, when businesses can stay fully staffed, we all have a lot of open positions. Our local economy remains strong. So we already have several companies in the park that are committed to supporting HATS. And we're hoping that other businesses will also join us. But investing locally in transit isn't just supporting a service, it's strengthening our workforce and our community.
I think that's well said. I appreciate you coming on to talk about that today.
Absolutely. Thanks, Doug.